Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Spits and Suds, an off-season edition. Thank you so much for supporting us as we get ready. Hard to believe, in just a few months, the 24-25 star season will be underway, and we'll take you there through free agency, through the draft, and more. And really excited to bring on the program today our NHL insider, back from the Stanley Cup, still traveling now, doing kind of a movie meeting tour. It's our own NHL insider from EP Rinkside, from Shap Shots, from the book We Win Here. You can order it for Dad and just tell him about it. It's coming, Dad, this weekend. What a great Father's Day gift. And the question is, similar to Cap Friendly, he has not been hired from the Washington Capitals, but maybe he will. But for now, he's our NHL insider. It's Sean Shapiro.
You're the greatest hype man I know, Gavin. This is I need to just like clip these episodes and send that as my resume to them, right? That's what I got to do.
Take me with you, but yeah,
exactly, yeah. No, it's good. We're actually here in Denver right now. We're doing some stuff to promote, having some meetings right now, talking about the movie The Late Game and talking about some future opportunities for that. At some point, we're gonna get something done there to bring it down to Dallas. So when that happens, we'll make sure that gets done too. But yeah, we're because of I was up at game 1 and 2 of the Cup final. I have a flight to Fort Lauderdale on Sunday night, but I might not need it. So we'll find out for that, won't we?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Tell me about the atmosphere in Florida, and what was it like from the TV standpoint? It just seemed like it was just a terrific barn.
Yeah, the thing about Florida's building, one of the things that works against it most of the time is actually working for it in the Cup final. It's huge. It's massive. It is the biggest. It's actually, I believe it might. I'm not sure if it's technically. I'd have to double check the numbers to see if it's bigger than Chicago. But it and Chicago are the two biggest buildings in the league. And so when you have a regular season game with 12,000 people, 13,000 people, it feels even more empty than it really is. Like, as opposed to like, if you had 13,000 people in Winnipeg's rink, it would feel completely full. So it's Florida's building, because of the size of it, makes it sometimes feel more hollow than it really is. But in this, when you get an event like this, when you get the Cup final, when you fill all of those 20,000 people like they have, it's really cool. Like, it's a really cool atmosphere. The people have really bought in. They've grown a little hockey community here. They've got the space. It's the thing where it's just like how when teams win, people come out of the woodwork too. So it was a really good atmosphere, game 1 and 2. That Edmonton atmosphere, I watched that one on TV. That one was great last night as well. But like, people got to give Florida some credit. This is what that team has done on the ice, off the ice. They've done a really nice job building something there, more than people have given them credit for in the past.
I was just thinking and laughing the other day when the Texas Rangers won the World Series. They did a really cool loop around the ballpark and around that area, and everyone jumped into one area. And I thought to myself, if the Florida Panthers go on to win this Stanley Cup, Sean, that's going to be the largest loop if they go down Fort Lauderdale and then curl around Miami and back. It'll be like a 2.5 day bender.
It's a 30-minute drive from Fort Lauderdale, which is where the team practices downtown Fort Lauderdale. They got the new facility they built there. And then 30 minutes and the team really makes a big push about being part of the Fort Lauderdale community. But then the rink is still 30 minutes west in Sunrise, literally right along the Everglades. Like, you don't even need to go to Miami to have a ridiculous, like, 2-day bender. You have enough stretch to get after it just between going the game and the practice rink.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And you're right about being right up against the tip of the Everglades. In fact, that's why I say this road trip's pretty good. You can fly into Tampa, let's say they're playing the Lightning. Then you actually get the opportunity to drive through Naples and the Florida Everglades, which is super cool to do. And then you end up in Florida. Now, around the stadium, there's not going to be much to do. There's kind of like a mall with some shops, but it's kind of been hit hard over the years or whatever. But then you can drive to Fort Lauderdale and then go to the game. But it is kind of a cool, kind of a hidden gem in the NHL road trip, because you get the weather and then you get to see the Stars play 2 games. And if you play it out right, which happened to me one day, in the middle day, I got to watch the Florida Everblades, who just won a championship. They're in the ECHL. So that's kind of a cool thing as well. So some good hockey in Florida. Okay, from a Stars standpoint, Sean, I think one of the things I was excited about as far as watching this cup matchup were two aspects. The first aspect, what would Florida do that the Stars couldn't do as far as special teams? And the second aspect, how would Edmonton match up with Florida? And it makes you think, how would the Stars have matched up with Florida? So if you could hit those 2 points, that'd be great.
Yeah. So I think the first off is it's command, please. I think the first thing right now is to have, from a Stars fan, you shouldn't watch the final with regret, because I think I think sometimes when you do that, you just beat yourself too much. It's gonna beat yourself up too much. It's gonna be an issue. So don't watch it with regret. Now there's been, because some people definitely do that, but Florida, I think, would have been favored against Dallas, in my view. I think at the end of the day, Dallas is partially beating Edmonton right now for Florida, and that part is going to sting for Stars fans, because you look at the injuries and you look at the chunks that Dallas took out of Edmonton. I think we're seeing that on the injury front for Edmonton. Last night, we saw Darnell Nurse has been terrible across all the series, but he's been even worse because of injuries sustained from the Dallas series. Evander Kane can't even sit down on the bench, didn't play the last game. And Florida just does – one of the things that Florida does defensively is they have a guy – the Stars don't have a Sasha Barkov. And that's, as much as like Rope Hintz, I think, should get Selke votes and everything like that. But Barkov is on a different level. And the way Barkov can go and win his matchup, whether it's the Draisaitl line or the McDavid line, that to me has been the biggest difference in everything. Rope Hintz was hurt. He tried to play through it, couldn't do what the Stars wanted him to do, and that's what Barkov's done. And that to me is the biggest tip of the spear from everything, where you have one of the best players in the world canceling out the other best players in the world, and also scoring pretty well while doing it. And then there's also, let's be honest, like, this series is 3-0 because Edmonton should have won game one. Bobrovsky went and did stuff in game one that Jake Ottinger hasn't done in game one. That's the other difference so far in this series.
Yeah. We talk a lot, Sean, about how the contracts of Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin, due to the play of the recent years, have not been talked about as much. I would say probably Bobrovsky's another case where no one no longer talks about that deal.
Well, he's a spot right now where, like Gavin, he's got 2 Vezinas. He's probably about to win a Conn Smythe and a cup. We're at a spot where we're having a legit Hall of Fame conversation about Bobrovsky now. Like, it's no longer is that contract worth it? Is this guy in the Hockey Hall of Fame? That's what he's done in the past 2.5 years now.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. Have you enjoyed watching it? Have you thought that it's been a good Stanley Cup? And the one thing is that from a hockey standpoint, it's interesting switching from TNT and then going to ESPN. It's like, oh man, like the between periods, there's just little aspects where I'm like, I kind of wish this was on TNT. I'm trying not to dog ESPN because, Sean, I do think that ESPN has brought so much to the table as far as we look at the growth of hockey, the salary cap going up, attendance, at an all-time high, TV ratings are doing well. To me, ESPN's a big part of that, so I don't want to dog them, but at the same time, I wanted to get your thoughts on the enjoyment factor of this series.
Yeah, so I watched game 1 and 2 live, right? So I didn't have any TV viewership view of how things went 1 and 2. Then I did watch game 3 on the television, and it's you and I have talked about this before, Gavin, with ESPN broadcast. One of the biggest problems sometimes just is it feels like the miscasting and the lack of a back end production talent. They don't have their Greg Finley like we have. So let's give our guy a shout out here, right? They don't have the people doing a good job on the back end to get it done. And it's like last night, the play-by-play call was so dry. And I'm actually okay with a neutral play-by-play. Like I think Josh Bogorod has a little bit more of a neutral play-by-play call than a lot of other people. But Josh understands and works well with his partner with Razor on when to bring energy. Like the play-by-play last night was just awful, and the studio show felt disjointed. There was the weird thing where like they couldn't find a bigger desk or somehow like it was. So I had a I can see as a hockey fan why when you watch the game, the ESPN broadcast can kind of take you out of it. And that's kind of frustrating, especially after you and I watched so much of the TNT coverage.
Yeah.
The TNT, what they did is they went and hired back-end producers from NBC or who did hockey. So there wasn't reinventing the wheel in the game production itself. Yes, they went through and changed the studio show, but in the game itself, the NBC broadcast wasn't that bad. And TNT realized that and stuck with what worked on that level and then built where they could.
David Castillo and I did a final grades for the Stars season, and it was a lot of fun to go through the lineup and discuss everything. And prior to that, Sean, I did a podcast regarding Matt Duchene and Chris Tanev. And one of the things that I noticed, and maybe I'm reading into it too much, but both players did not avoid the question as far as wanting to come back. In fact, I really pointed out on the podcast, Sean, that Matt Duchene was saying we a lot. And then comes Tanev, and, Tanev was saying, absolutely, I'd love to be back. I know they have to say it, Sean, but I will say it really, to me, said a lot about the organization and what Jim Nill has been able to do as far as making these players feel at home, comfortable, and making Dallas a destination city.
Yeah, I want to give Jim, and there's some really great Jim Nill stories about how he's built a culture, and I don't want to take away from that. I also do want to be clear that it is smart on their part for Duchene and Tanev to say that right now. So I think it's good. Don't use it as a positive. Like I saw Patrick Kane's final press conference with Detroit, and I watched that one. I'm like, yeah, there's no way he's back based off how he talked about the offseason. Tanev and Duchene are clearly heavily considering coming back to Dallas, and I've talked to people who have said that as well. I believe Tanev is more of the first priority for Dallas after how well he instantly and this team's glaring need on the defense for him. And I don't know for sure, and as I always throw out there before someone tries to aggregate this is me just kind of hearing things and not reporting things. This is just kind of how the feel I get about things is, well, Tanev and the Stars want to make this work is what I get from. And I think Duchene is in that camp as well, but it's going to come down to Duchene is going to be more of a Dallas decision of how do you start to pivot this core and make the caps work? And can he do a 1-year deal? Like, is he willing to move into the Joe Pavelski 1-year deal type space? Knowing full well he's not going to get the long-term security, because I think that's the type of thing Dallas is going to need as they've got some of these big RFA deals coming up soon. With at some point you're going to pay the piper for what Wyatt Johnston has done, for what Logan Stankoven will be. You got to plan for all of that, and Duchene wants to be back in Dallas. I know that. Stars would like him back in theory. The key is he looking for that final career payout, or is he willing to do what Pavelski did in the past couple years and go to those 1-year deals that make allow things for Dallas work? That's the fascinating thing, and we can have a full Duchene breakdown at some point. Gavin, we should probably before July 1st, but it's definitely a fascinating one because it's not a lack of want for the player.
Yeah, I thought he was very candid, too, and I really like that as far as talking about the first 60 games he was a robot and talking about the surgeries and how it was a whirlwind and moving his family to Dallas. There was just a lot of things that I'm like, wow, this is a really candid kind of outgoing interview that I learned things about Matt Duchene that I'm not saying I didn't think about that stuff, but he brought it to the forefront, and, I really appreciated that. I mean, you look at leaders, and Matt Duchene, I don't know, was ever considered one of those, like we talk about captains and all that stuff. This is a veteran, but it just seems as though the way he talked, the way he was in the room, the way he got along with the guys, it seemed like a good fit. And, I liked everything about that outgoing interview.
Yeah, and I really like, for me, when it comes to Duchene, I think he's shown a lot of growth.
Yeah.
And part of it comes down to we've heard about this before, where in the past, the Stars probably didn't think he would fit their culture, and then Joe Pavelski changed their culture. And I think part of Duchene's conversation with Dallas will be, can you continue to push the right culture for this team that Jim Nill is building and everything like that, even with Joe Pavelski gone? And I don't think the Stars are in any risk of ruining their culture or anything like that, Gavin. But I do think you have to be honest with yourself that there's certain guys that fit in Dallas because they followed Pavelski's lead. And you have to start figuring out those dynamics of what works and what doesn't with him now gone as you move on. It's just kind of something to think about. I know it's and I think Duchene still fits. There's I think, but that's something that the Stars will have conversations with other UFAs, with other things like that, about finding that Pavelski type voice if it's possible, because we saw how much this team benefited from it.
Yeah. You wrote a great article on Shap Shots, which our Spits and Suds listeners, several have subscribed to. Wow, say that fast. And the latest is about Liam Bichsel. And the title is Making as Much Sense as We Can of Liam Bichsel's Season. And you went into playing in the playoffs for 3 different clubs. It's been a whirlwind of season over 2 continents. But I was interested at the back end, Sean, where you mentioned in talking with people, and you did mention Nils Lundqvist and how many think he's gone, but you're not so sure of that. And you basically talked about maybe Liam Bichsel starts the season in the AHL, and there is a track record of this with this organization with Jason Robertson, Jake Ottinger, Thomas Harley starting the year and then coming up.
Yeah, I think Bichsel, the best comp maybe for Bichsel is to go and look at what happened with John Klingberg, potentially. Where John Klingberg, when he came into Dallas, he played 12 games with the Texas Stars after playing with Sweden the year before, and then came in and was clearly ready for the NHL. And I think that's kind of the best potential comp for what Bichsel could do. I don't think he starts the year in Dallas, but I think he starts in Texas, and I think there's a real chance that he either earns that spot or someone else falters and he gets that spot. And I do want to address the Lundqvist thing real quick, because I know a lot of people have been like, oh, they look how the playoffs ended with Lundqvist being a healthy scratch and everything like that. And well, we know Pete DeBoer doesn't trust Nils Lundqvist. We also know Jim Nill is not a person who likes to sell depreciating assets while they're depreciating. He sometimes likes to just kind of ride it out a bit on this. And so I think Lundqvist, in my view, what I would do personally is I would sneak him through waivers on the first day of training camp. So you have that option where Lundqvist goes through the waivers, and you can then potentially make him a guy who gets that kind of runway in the AHL to play. Now, maybe he pushes back against that. Maybe his agent demands a trade, and then at that point, you simply say to him, "You got no value. I can't trade you anyway. You'll clear waivers." So that's how I would handle Lundqvist, with full hope that Bichsel is kind of pushes and is ready. And I also think there's something to having Bichsel and Lundqvist competing. Maybe that brings the best out of both guys. Who knows? I think there's still a space for both of them going here right now.
Yeah. And we both agree that we think that Ryan Suter's coming back.
Yeah, he's not getting bought out.
Yeah.
He's not getting bought out. He's been de-escalated and everything like that. It's I think it actually cost the Stars. I mean, when his contract was signed, he doesn't even have one of those contracts that is really like smart to buy out anyway. So he's back.
Okay. Let's go around the NHL for a couple more things before we let you go for your big meeting in Denver. Interesting move in San Jose by GM Mike Greer. Usually when an incoming GM comes in, an outside coach can be brought in, but they promote assistant coach Ryan Warsofsky off the old coach, and now he is the new head coach of the San Jose Sharks. I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, I like the move. I think Warsofsky is a really good coach. He He's won in the ECHL with the South Carolina Stingrays. He's won in the AHL with both with the Chicago Wolves, and had a very good run with the Charlotte Checkers as well. He's a good coach. He's a really good detail guy. He's been kind of one of those innovators on the penalty kill. One of the things that was the Sharks penalty, even the Sharks have been awful. Their penalty kill has had some really nice elements I like to it. And so I think Warsofsky is the other thing about Warsofsky is as you're building this team, right? You're going to have Macklin Celebrini, who's going to be your number one pick this year. He's going to play in the NHL this year, most likely. You have Will Smith, who signed out of Boston College. Warsofsky's 36 years old. I love the idea of, as they're building a young team, of building of having a coach who can grow with them. I think it's the perfect fit for how San Jose wants to build things, and you get time to do it. So I like this. I like this move a lot for the Sharks, actually, this hire here.
It is official. We have a new Central Division opponent. It is the Utah Hockey Club. Now, they did say that in 2025-26, they might have another name, but they did don the uniforms, basically diagonally saying Utah down the side. I'm going to be honest, Sean. With the Knights, how they did it, and I know this is different circumstances. With the Kraken, there was a lot more time. But with all the brains, I think they could have got a little bit more creative.
Well, I think they're legitimately testing to see if that's going to be the name. Like I think the owner, Ryan Smith, wants Utah Hockey Club as a name, but I don't think you're getting by. I think this is kind of the test run for it. I really do. I think it's the informal test run. After that, based off, they've said the color scheme is going to be what the real color scheme is. So after that, I think it's either Utah Hockey Club, or it's going to be either like Blizzard or Yetis, because that would fit the color scheme that's out right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I like Yeti. Give me Yeti. Give me Blizzard. I mean,
I'm good with that, Joe.
Yeah, give me a snowman on the ice, like skating around.
Yeah.
Like, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Okay. That's wanted to get that out. I need my creative juices got flowing, and I saw that, and I'm like, it sounded soccerish to me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think it can work if done well. I'm just not as sold on it being I'm not as sold on the NHL being cool with it, basically.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Okay. So former Dallas star Mark Mathot would have been awesome if he didn't get injured, because I thought it was a great acquisition at the time. It was during the Vegas expansion draft. Jim Nill pulled the trigger on a trade. Mathot was picked up by Vegas. Then Vegas and Dallas did a deal. He came to Dallas. It was that big defensive defenseman. He tweeted out the following: "I need advice." So I thought to myself, well, all right, I'm going to bring Sean into this mix. So he goes on to say, "So my son arrives from school today and tells me that an older kid told him at recess that his dad, parentheses me, is, quote, trash at hockey. No biggie. Kids say stupid stuff, right? But after thinking it's over a little more, I realize it's likely the kid's father who told him. It bothers me. I can't let it go. What's the protocol for this? Do I challenge the pigeon via note? Send my kid in with a signed card for the dad? Or do I let it go and just enjoy the game? I'm all ears." It got a lot of traction on Twitter. I think it's a great thing to put out on Twitter. I found it fascinating. I do want to make the disclaimer. When the Ottawa Senators were going through a cup run and they lost to Pittsburgh, Mark Mathot was huge. He was on the line with Erik Karlsson. They were blue liners. Yeah. So, I always thought Mark Mathot was a very good defenseman. I know injuries caught up to him, but I find it fascinating that a dad would tell a kid, and our kid would make that statement. Now more than ever, you can go online and see that was a pretty good D-man you're trash talking.
I think it's fun with it. I think you tweet about it, you kind of do what you do, and then you kind of let it go. I think that's kind of the way you do it.
Yeah. I think the autograph would be a nice touch.
Yeah, that'd be a nice touch. Yeah, and I think Mark's kind of career was a bit underrated. The injuries kind of derailed him at the end. So his time in Dallas is not remembered fondly because of how injured he was, but he was an ideal for the state of the game at the time, a really good piece on an Ottawa team that performed above and beyond what they should have. So no, but I think the play here is to kind of maybe do the autograph, otherwise just have the fun on Twitter and leave it at that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so tell me what's going on in your life. You have the movie, you have the draft coming up, you have a potential flight booked back to Florida.
Yes, I have a flight to Fort Lauderdale on Monday actually, because game 5 would be Tuesday, so I have a flight there Tuesday. That we'll see if it's going to happen. If not, the next travel will be Vegas for the draft, and we'll see what's going on there. And we'll have to do a Stars kind of like, we'll have to look at some options for the Stars. We might have to bring on one of my guys from EP Rinkside, Gavin, to kind of look at some of that stuff. We'll probably get our guy Cam on probably for that. And then for now, just we're having a meeting here in Denver right now, talking about some movie marketing stuff and everything like that. So. And a very meta thing, I'll tell people right now, if you need something to do tonight, it's Friday night. Go rent the late game on Prime Video. It's right up there for you. Rent or buy it. It's a great movie, and I wouldn't say that if I didn't truly believe that. So
there's no off season for Sean. You're busier than ever. It's like, it's like us at Spits and Suds. It was like, all right, we'll take a break, and then. This week, I think we have 4 podcasts.
No, but the people have liked it, so that's been good, Gavin. It's been good. You've helped build a really nice thing here, so it's awesome.
It's cool. By the way, Sean, I talked with Kaylee Lewis out of McKinney, 19 years old. She's just made the all-rookie team in Hockey East for UVM. She's a beast. I was watching tape, and I was asking her about it, and she just loves getting in front of the net. And she loves physical play. And it was just so cool talking to her about that. And she just loves grinding and mixing it up. And that's someone to watch. I mean, it was so cool this week to see Allison Simpson out of Frisco being drafted and Hannah Bilker going 4th overall. And, to talk to Kaylee Lewis this week. I mean, we talk about the growth of game in DFW. The ladies are certainly, they're doing their part.
No, it is. It's been really cool to see that. So hockey from Dallas is growing. It's going to keep growing. It's good to see what Dallas has done. We talked about Florida earlier. It's good to see programs growing all of it. It's good to see the sport kind of elevating. So that's awesome. And it's funny. We're having great, even though Stars are done, we're having good conversations in June here, Gavin. So I think this show's doing well itself.
Heck yeah, my friend. So that's going to do it for another edition of Spits and Suds. Sean's got to go to some big-time meetings. He's always on the run, but always glad that he can give us his time. And don't forget, people, spread the word. There's an off-season Stars podcast that you can listen to. We bring you the latest on the NHL and also your Dallas Stars as it happens. We also do individual programs regarding the Dallas Stars, so and interviews, of course, as well. So if you're on Spotify or Apple, make sure you give us 5 stars. That would be awesome. And write a review because I love reading the reviews about the program. So for Sean Shapiro, I'm Gavin Spittle. Have a great weekend, everyone. We'll be back with another episode of Spits and Suds soon on 105.3 The Fan.